The massive space station called Nexus floated in the darkness between star systems. It was neutral ground, a place where different alien species could meet without fear of attack. Today, the station buzzed with activity as ships from 12 different worlds arrived one after another. Admiral Kethvar stood in the main meeting hall, his blue skin gleaming under the artificial lights. He belonged to a race called the Hegemony, tall beings with 4 arms and eyes that could see in many different colors. Around him, other alien representatives took their places at the large round table. The crystalline Vextai representatives looked like living diamonds, their bodies making soft, musical sounds as they moved. Their leader, Prism Singer Velnath, sat perfectly still, light bending around her transparent form. Next to them, the Luminari delegates appeared as balls of pure energy contained in special suits that let them interact with solid matter. Hive Queen Zalthera of the Zephyrians clicked, her mandibles nervously. Her insect-like body was covered in chitinous armor that shifted colors based on her mood. Currently, it showed deep red patterns that meant worry and anger. Around the table, other species gathered. The plant-like Sylvans, the mechanical construct, Collective, and 8 other races that made up the Galactic Council. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Admiral Kethvar began, his voice carrying through the translation devices that allowed all species to understand each other. We face a crisis that threatens every civilization in this galaxy. Hikai pressed a button on his control device, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the table. The image showed a massive ship floating in space, so large that it dwarfed everything around it. The vessel stretched for kilometers, its hull covered in strange geometric patterns and mysterious devices. "This is the latest creation of the humans," Kethvar said, his voice heavy with concern. "They call it a Titan-class ship. Our intelligence networks have confirmed that this is not just a warship. It is something far more dangerous. The Luminari delegate, a being of pure energy called Radiance of Dawn, pulsed brighter. How dangerous could one ship be, even if it is large?" Kethvar manipulated the display, showing detailed scans of the human vessel. "Our sensors cannot fully penetrate its hull, but what we can detect is terrifying. The energy readings are unlike anything we have ever seen. The weapon systems appear to use technology that we do not understand. And most concerning of all, there are temporal distortions around the ship." Prism Singer Velnath's crystalline body rang with a low, ominous note. "Temporal distortions? The humans are playing with time itself?" "It appears so," Kethvar replied grimly. "We all know how quickly these humans have advanced. What took our civilizations millions of years to develop, they achieved in mere thousands. They went from primitive tool users to spacefaring in less time than it takes most species to develop basic agriculture." Hive Queen Zalthara's chitin armor shifted to deep purple, the color of fear. Her species existed partially outside normal time, which made them sensitive to temporal disturbances. If they can manipulate time, they could attack us before we even know they have moved. They could change the past to prevent our species from ever evolving. The representative from the Construct Collective, a robot designated Unit Prime 7, processed this information through its quantum computers. Analysis confirms human technological advancement rate is 847.6% faster than galactic average. Projected capabilities in 10 standard years, complete galactic domination probability 78.4%. A murmur of concern rippled through the assembled delegates. The Sylvan representative, a tree-like being called Root Whisper San, rustled his leaves anxiously. "In all our thousands of years of existence, we have seen aggressive species before, but none have advanced so quickly or developed such dangerous technologies." Kethvar nodded solemnly. "The humans claim their ship is for peaceful purposes, but we cannot ignore the threat it represents. Our own intelligence suggests they are building more of these vessels. If we allow them to complete their fleet, it may be too late to stop them." The energy being called Radiance of Dawn flickered with uncertainty. "What do you propose we do? The humans have not actually attacked anyone." "Not yet," Kethvar replied, "but we cannot wait for them to strike first. Once they activate whatever weapons that ship carries, we may not have the chance to defend ourselves." He brought up another holographic display, this one showing star charts and fleet positions. "I have spent the last several weeks coordinating with our military commanders. We can assemble a joint fleet of 10,000 ships from all our civilizations. It would be the largest armada in galactic history." The room fell silent as the delegates considered this proposal. 10,000 ships represented an enormous commitment of resources and personnel. It would leave many systems with reduced defenses. Prism Singer. Velnath sang a questioning note. Are you certain this is necessary? Perhaps we could try diplomacy first? Kethvar's expression grew darker. We have tried to establish meaningful contact with the humans many times. They are polite but secretive. They share no real information about their technologies or their intentions. They claim to want peace, but they continue building weapons like this. Unit Prime 7's mechanical voice added to the discussion. Statistical analysis of human behavior patterns shows high probability of deception. Their statements about peaceful intentions do not match their military buildup. Hive Queen Zalthara clicked her mandibles in agreement. My people have felt the temporal disturbances growing stronger. Whatever the humans are doing with time, it is affecting space itself. We can sense ripples in the fabric of reality emanating from their territory. Root Whisper San's leaves rustled with worry. If they can control time, they could prevent our civilizations from ever meeting. They could go back and stop us from forming this alliance. The implications of this statement sent waves of fear through the assembled delegates. The ability to change the past was perhaps the most terrifying weapon imaginable. Kethvar stood up, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of determination. We cannot allow this threat to grow any larger. Every day we delay gives the humans more time to complete their preparations. If we act now, while they have only one of these ships, we might still have a chance. The luminary delegate pulsed with nervous energy. But attacking them without provocation, it goes against everything the Galactic Council stands for. Protecting our species is what the Council stands for, Kethvar replied firmly. Sometimes protection requires difficult choices. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for attempting diplomatic contact one more time. Others wanted to issue an ultimatum, demanding that the humans surrender their temporal technology. But as the discussion progressed, it became clear that most of the representatives believed the threat was too great to ignore. Finally, Prism Singer Velnath called for a formal vote. All in favor of assembling a joint fleet to neutralize the human temporal weapon? One by one, the delegates raised their appendages, tentacles, or energy fields in agreement. The Vextai voted yes. The Luminari voted yes. The Zephyrians voted yes. Each of the 12 species represented at the table agreed that action was necessary. The motion passes unanimously, Velnath announced, her crystalline body ringing with a sound like funeral bells. Admiral Kethvar, you are authorized to begin fleet assembly immediately. Kethvar bowed his head solemnly. I will send word to all military commanders within the hour. Our ships will begin gathering at the edge of human space within 10 standard days. As the meeting broke up, the delegates spoke quietly among themselves. Many expressed hope that the humans would see reason and surrender their dangerous technology without a fight. Others worried about the casualties that might result from such a massive military operation. Hive Queen Zalthara approached Kethvar as he prepared to leave. Admiral, my people's temporal senses are telling us something disturbing. The distortions around the human ship are not just random fluctuations. There is a pattern to them, as if they are building towards something specific. Kethvar's blue skin paled slightly. What kind of something? We are not certain, the insectoid queen replied. But it feels like a countdown, as if the humans are preparing for a single massive use of their temporal technology. This information made Kethvar even more determined to act quickly. If the humans were planning some kind of temporal attack, the combined fleet needed to stop them before they could carry it out. Over the next several days, ships began arriving at the designated assembly point near the edge of human space. Massive dreadnoughts from the hegemony joined sleek cruisers from the Vextai homeworld. The Luminari contributed energy-based vessels that looked like captured stars, while the Zephyrians brought swarm ships that could separate into thousands of smaller fighters. Each species contributed their most advanced warships and their most experienced crews. The assembled fleet represented the combined military might of 12 civilizations, accumulated over millions of years of technological development. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching as more ships continued to arrive. The sight should have filled him with confidence, but instead he felt a growing sense of unease. The temporal distortions that the Zephyrians detected were getting stronger, and their countdown pattern was accelerating. His communications officer approached with the latest intelligence reports. Admiral, our scouts report that the human ship has moved to the outer edge of their solar system. It appears to be charging some kind of massive energy weapon. Kethvar studied the tactical displays showing the positions of both fleets. The humans had assembled their own defensive force, but it was tiny compared to the Council Armada. Perhaps 200 ships at most, including their single massive vessel. Sir, his science officer called out, We are detecting massive energy buildups throughout human space. It appears they are channeling power from multiple star systems into their Titan-class ship. The Admiral's worst fears seemed to be coming true. The humans were preparing for something big, and they were using the power of entire solar systems to do it. Whatever temporal weapon they had built, it was about to be activated. "Send word to all fleet commanders," Kethvar ordered. "We advance, immediately. We cannot allow the humans to complete whatever they are planning." The largest armada in galactic history began moving toward Earth, carrying the hopes and fears of 12 different civilizations. None of them knew that they were about to become part of the very solution they feared to prevent. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, looking out at the stars through the massive viewing windows. The ship around her was unlike anything humanity had ever built before. At 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide, it was more like a floating city than a traditional spacecraft. But Elena knew the truth that the approaching alien fleet did not. The Prometheus was not a weapon of war. It was humanity's last, desperate attempt to save the universe itself. "Captain," called out her science officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, "we are receiving updates from Earth Command. The alien fleet now numbers over 10,000 ships and is approaching fast." Elena nodded grimly. She had expected this reaction from the other species. From the outside, the Prometheus certainly looked like a weapon. Its hull was covered with massive geometric arrays that pulsed with energy. Strange devices extended from its surface like metallic growths. To an observer who did not know its true purpose, it would appear to be the ultimate weapon of destruction. "Any word from Dr. Chen?" Elena asked, referring to Sarah's father, who was the chief scientist on the project. "He is still in the main laboratory running final calculations," Sarah replied. "He says we need at least 6 more hours to complete the charging sequence." Elena looked at the tactical display showing the approaching alien armada. "We may not have 6 hours." Deep within the ship, Dr. James Chen worked frantically at his computer terminals. Around him, the most advanced technology humanity had ever created hummed with barely contained power. The room was filled with devices that bent space and time, equipment that existed partially in multiple dimensions at once. Dr. Chen paused in his work and thought back to how it all began. 3 years ago, human scientists had been studying the effects of faster-than-light travel on the fabric of space-time. What they discovered had filled them with horror. Every time a ship used its FTL drive, it created tiny tears in the dimensional fabric that held reality together. For a single journey, the damage was microscopic and healed itself naturally. But over the past 1,000 years, millions of ships from dozens of species had been using FTL technology throughout the galaxy. The cumulative effect was catastrophic. Space-time itself was unraveling, like a piece of cloth that had been pulled, and stretched until threads began to break. Dr. Chen's calculations showed that within 50 years, the damage would reach a critical point. Reality would collapse in a cascade failure that would destroy not just the galaxy, but potentially the entire universe. The worst part was that none of the other species seemed to have noticed. Their science was advanced, but they had never specifically looked for this type of cumulative damage. They had been accidentally destroying the universe for centuries without realizing it. Dr. Chen had presented his findings to the human government, expecting them to immediately contact the other species and work together on a solution. Instead, he had been sworn to secrecy and ordered to find a way to fix the problem without revealing it to anyone else. The reason was simple. If humanity announced that FTL travel was destroying the universe, the other species would either not believe them or would blame them for the discovery. Either way, the result would likely be war, which would prevent any solution from being implemented. So humanity had been forced to work alone, using resources from across their entire civilization, to build a device capable of repairing the damage. The Prometheus was not a ship in any traditional sense. It was a massive temporal field generator, designed to weave the torn fabric of space-time back together. The technology had been partially reverse-engineered from ancient artifacts found buried on Earth. Apparently, a previous civilization had faced the same crisis millions of years ago. They had failed to solve it in time, leaving behind only scattered pieces of their attempted solution for humanity to find. Dr. Chen had spent 2 years figuring out how the ancient technology worked, and another year building a device powerful enough to repair the damage across an entire galaxy. The process required enormous amounts of energy, channeled through quantum field generators that could manipulate the fundamental structure of reality itself. "Dr. Chen," came his daughter's voice over the communication system, "the alien fleet will be here in less than 4 hours. How much longer do you need?" "At least 6 hours for a complete repair," he replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Maybe 3 hours for a partial fix that would buy us more time." The aliens are not going to give us 3 hours, Sarah said grimly. They think we are building a weapon to destroy them. Dr. Chen understood their fear. From the outside, the Prometheus would appear to be exactly what they thought it was. The quantum field generators looked like exotic weapons. The temporal distortions around the ship would seem like preparation for some kind of time-based attack. Back on the bridge, Captain Vasquez was dealing with an impossible situation. Earth Command had been clear in their orders. Complete the temporal repair project at any cost. The survival of the universe depended on it. But the approaching alien fleet was equally determined to stop what they saw as an existential threat to their civilizations. Captain, her communications officer reported, "We are receiving a transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through," Elena replied. The face of Admiral Rebecca Martinez appeared on the main screen. She looked tired and worried, the weight of humanity's secret pressing down on her shoulders. "Captain Vasquez, what is your status?" "The Prometheus is operating normally, Admiral. Dr. Chen estimates 6 hours to completion, but the alien fleet will be here in 4. Admiral Martinez closed her eyes for a moment. "Elena, I am about to share classified information with you. The Prometheus is not just important to humanity. It is the only thing standing between the universe and complete destruction." Elena had suspected that the project was more significant than she had been told, but hearing it confirmed still shocked her. "Admiral, can you be more specific?" "FTL travel has been tearing holes in space-time for centuries," Martinez explained. "The damage is cumulative and approaching a critical failure point. If we do not repair it within the next 50 years, reality itself will collapse." The bridge crew listened in stunned silence as the Admiral continued. "Dr. Chen's device is our only hope of fixing the damage before it is too late. The alien species do not know about the crisis, and we cannot tell them without risking a war that would prevent us from completing the solution." Elena felt the full weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "What are your orders, Admiral?" "Complete the mission at any cost," Martinez replied. "If humanity dies but the universe survives, that is an acceptable outcome. If the universe dies because we failed to complete the project, then everyone dies anyway." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Elena looked around at her crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination on every face. "You heard the Admiral," she said quietly. "We are not just defending humanity anymore. We are defending everything that exists." Lieutenant Commander Chen worked at her station, coordinating with her father in the laboratory. "Captain, Dr. Chen says the charging process cannot be accelerated without risking a catastrophic failure that would make the situation worse." Elena nodded. "Then we defend the ship for as long as possible and hope the aliens see reason before it is too late." In the laboratory, Dr. Chen continued his work while monitoring the approaching fleet. He had spent months trying to figure out a way to prove to the aliens that humanity was trying to help rather than harm them. The problem was that any demonstration of the temporal technology would look like a weapon test. The quantum field generators were designed to operate on a galactic scale. Testing them would create space-time distortions that could be detected across dozens of star systems. To species that did not understand the technology, it would appear that humanity was preparing to attack reality itself. Dr. Chen had considered trying to explain the situation through diplomatic channels, but the mathematics involved were incredibly complex. It had taken him 2 years to fully understand the problem, even with access to the ancient artifacts. Trying to convince 12 different alien species in a matter of hours seemed impossible. As he worked, Dr. Chen noticed something interesting in his sensor readings. The approaching alien fleet was generating its own temporal distortions through their FTL drives. The massive number of ships arriving at once was actually accelerating the space-time damage in the local area. This gave him an idea. If the aliens attacked the Prometheus with their energy weapons, that energy could potentially be channeled into the quantum field generators. It would be incredibly dangerous and would require precise timing, but it might provide enough power to complete the repair process ahead of schedule. "Sarah," he called to his daughter on the bridge, "I need to speak with Captain Vasquez immediately." A few minutes later, Elena arrived in the laboratory. Dr. Chen quickly explained his idea while showing her the energy calculations on his computer screens. "You want to let them shoot at us?" Elena asked, incredulously. "Not exactly," Dr. Chen replied. "I want to use their weapons fire as an additional power source. If we can channel the energy from 10,000 ships directly into our quantum field generators, we might be able to complete the repair in minutes instead of hours." Elena studied the calculations, trying to understand the implications. "What are the risks?" "If we miscalculate the energy levels, the Prometheus could be destroyed instantly," Dr. Chen admitted. If we channel too much power too quickly, we could create a temporal explosion that would damage space-time even worse than the original problem. And if we do nothing? The aliens destroy us before we can complete the repair, and the universe dies in 50 years anyway. Elena realized that they were facing an impossible choice between certain death and a slim chance of success. But given what was at stake, there was really only one option. "How long would you need to modify the field generators?" she asked. 2 hours, maybe less if I skip the safety protocols. Elena made her decision. "Do it. I will try to buy you as much time as possible." As Dr. Chen began frantically modifying his equipment, Elena returned to the bridge to prepare for the most important battle in the history of the universe. She only hoped that when it was over, there would still be a universe left to save. Ambassador Sarah Kim sat in the cramped cabin of the courier ship Hermes as it raced through space toward the alien armada. She had volunteered for this mission knowing it was probably suicide, but humanity's only hope for survival lay in convincing the aliens that they were not the enemy. The small ship carried no weapons and minimal shields. Its only purpose was to deliver Sarah and her message to the alien fleet before they reached Earth. In her hands, she held a datapad containing humanity's complete research on the temporal crisis, detailed scientific proofs, and a formal request for cooperation rather than destruction. "Ambassador, we are approaching the alien fleet," called out the ship's pilot, Commander Jake Morrison. "They have 10,000 ships spread across a formation that stretches for millions of kilometers." Sarah looked out the window at the approaching armada. She had seen pictures, but the reality was overwhelming. Ships of dozens of different designs filled the space ahead of them, from crystalline vessels that looked like living gemstones to energy beings contained in glowing spheres. "Are they responding to our communication requests?" she asked. "Yes, Ambassador. The lead ship is granting us permission to dock, but they are warning us that any aggressive action will result in immediate destruction." Sarah nodded. She had expected nothing less. From the alien's perspective, she was a representative of a species that had just built the most dangerous weapon in galactic history. The Hermes approached the massive flagship of the alien fleet, a vessel called the Eternal Dominion, that belonged to the hegemony. As they drew closer, Sarah could see weapon batteries tracking their movement and hundreds of smaller ships maintaining a defensive perimeter around the flagship. The docking process was tense, with alien security forces escorting Sarah and her small diplomatic team through corridors filled with 4 armed blue beings carrying advanced weapons. The architecture of the alien ship was beautiful but intimidating, with curved walls and surfaces that seemed to flow like water. Finally, they arrived at a conference room where Admiral Kethavar was waiting along with representatives from several other species. Sarah recognized some of them from intelligence briefings: the crystalline Vextai, the energy-based Luminary, and the insectoid Zephyrians. "Ambassador Kim," Admiral Kethavar said, his voice carrying a tone of barely controlled hostility. "You have requested this meeting to discuss humanity's surrender, I presume." Sarah took a deep breath and activated her translation device to ensure all species could understand her words. "Admiral, I have come here to prevent a terrible misunderstanding that could result in the destruction of everything we all hold dear, the I." Alien leaders exchanged glances. Prism singer Velnath, the Vextai representative, made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Explain this misunderstanding, human." Sarah placed her datapad on the table and activated its holographic display. The image showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of tiny red spots scattered throughout. "What you are seeing are the cumulative effects of faster-than-light travel on the fabric of space-time itself," she began. "Every time any of our ships uses FTL technology, it creates microscopic tears in the dimensional structure that holds reality together." Admiral Kethavar leaned forward, studying the display with interest despite his suspicion. "And you expect us to believe that you discovered something our scientists missed?" "Not missed," Sarah replied carefully. "Simply never looked for. Our research indicates that most species focus on improving FTL efficiency rather than studying its long-term effects on space-time stability." She manipulated the display to show a time-lapse simulation of the damage accumulating over centuries. The red spots grew larger and began connecting with each other, forming a web of instability across the galaxy. "According to our calculations, the damage will reach a critical threshold within 50 years, Sarah continued. "When that happens, space-time will collapse in a cascade failure that will destroy not just our galaxy, but potentially the entire universe." Hive Queen Zalthara's chitinous armor shifted to deep orange, indicating intense concentration. Her species' ability to perceive temporal distortions made her particularly sensitive to what Sarah was describing. "The temporal distortions we have been detecting," she clicked, They are related to this? Yes, Sarah replied, encouraged by the first sign of understanding. The Prometheus is not a weapon. It is a temporal field generator designed to repair the damage before it becomes irreversible. The luminary representative Radiance of Dawn pulsed with skeptical energy. You expect us to believe that your massive ship, bristling with unknown technology, is actually meant to help us? Sarah activated another part of her presentation, showing detailed schematics of the Prometheus's internal systems. These are not weapons. They are quantum field generators capable of weaving space-time back together. The process requires enormous amounts of energy, which is why the ship is so large. Admiral Kethvar studied the technical diagrams with growing suspicion. Even if what you say is true, why would humanity work on this problem in secret? Why not contact the Council and request assistance? This was the question Sarah had been dreading. The honest answer would likely end any chance of cooperation, but lying would be worse. Because we knew you would react exactly as you have, she said quietly. You would either not believe us, or you would blame humanity for discovering the problem. Either way, the result would be conflict that would prevent a solution from being implemented. The room fell silent as the alien representatives processed this statement. Sarah could see anger building in several of their expressions. Unit Prime 7, the mechanical representative of the Construct Collective, spoke in its emotionless voice. Statistical analysis indicates 73.2% probability that this is an elaborate deception designed to prevent defensive action against human temporal weapons. I understand your skepticism, Sarah replied, but I can provide real-time data from our sensors that will prove what I am telling you. She activated a quantum entanglement communicator, a device that allowed instantaneous communication across any distance. Dr. James Chen, the lead scientist on the project, is standing by to answer any technical questions and provide verification of our data. The face of Dr. Chen appeared in the holographic display, showing him surrounded by the complex equipment inside the Prometheus. Sarah could see the strain on his face as he worked frantically to complete the modifications needed for their desperate plan. Dr. Chen, Admiral Kethvar said coldly, you claim to be saving the universe. Prove it. Dr. Chen looked up from his work, his expression serious. Admiral, I can show you real-time measurements of the space-time distortions throughout this sector. Our sensors are detecting increasing instability that correlates exactly with the arrival of your fleet. He manipulated his controls, and the display showed a complex web of measurements indicating temporal stress patterns around the alien armada. Your 10,000 ships using FTL drives simultaneously is creating exactly the kind of cumulative damage I described, Dr. Chen continued. Each individual ship causes minimal harm, but together you are accelerating the crisis. Prism singer Velnath sang a questioning note. If this is true, why have our own scientists not detected it? Because you have never had 10,000 ships in one location before, Dr. Chen replied. The effect is only noticeable when the concentration of FTL distortions reaches a critical density. Hive Queen Zalthara's armor shifted to pale yellow, the color of dawning understanding. The countdown pattern we have been sensing, it is not a weapon charging. It is the universe itself approaching a breaking point. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. Exactly. And unless we complete our repair process soon, that breaking point will be reached regardless of whether you destroy us or not. The alien leaders began talking among themselves in their various languages. Sarah could see that some of them were beginning to consider the possibility that humanity was telling the truth, but others remained deeply suspicious. Admiral Kethvar turned back to the display. Even if we accept your explanation, how do we know that your repair process will not make things worse? How do we know this is not some kind of temporal weapon, disguised as a solution? This was the crucial moment. Sarah knew that her next words would determine whether diplomacy had any chance of succeeding. Because we are willing to share all of our research with you, she said. Complete technical specifications, theoretical frameworks, everything. You can verify our calculations with your own scientists. She uploaded a massive data file to the alien computer systems. This contains 3 years of research, including the mathematical proofs that FTL travel damages space-time and the detailed plans for repairing that damage. The alien representatives began reviewing the data through their various technological interfaces. Sarah waited nervously as minutes passed, watching their expressions for any sign of understanding. Finally, Unit Prime 7 spoke. Initial analysis suggests mathematical frameworks are consistent with known physics. However, conclusions contradict established understanding of space-time stability. Because you have never studied long-term cumulative effects, Dr. Chen interjected. Your science focuses on immediate practical applications, not subtle damage that accumulates over centuries. Admiral Kethvar's expression remained skeptical. Even if your science is correct, the timing is suspicious. You discover this crisis just as you build a massive ship capable of manipulating time itself? Sarah felt her heart sinking as she realized that the aliens' suspicion was too deep to overcome with mere evidence. They had already decided that humanity was a threat, and no amount of scientific data would change their minds. The breaking point came when Zalthara suddenly stood up, her armor flashing bright red. I am detecting massive temporal energy building in the human ship. The countdown is accelerating. Dr. Chen's image showed him looking at his instruments with alarm. That is because your fleet's FTL drives are creating interference with our field generators. The proximity of so many ships is destabilizing our equipment. But to the aliens, this looked like confirmation of their worst fears. Admiral Kethvar stood up abruptly. You are activating your weapon while we sit here talking. This entire diplomatic meeting is a distraction. No, you do not understand, Sarah said desperately. The instability is caused by your ships, not ours. If you would just move your fleet away from our vessel... Enough lies, Kethvar declared. This meeting is over. You have exactly 1 hour to surrender your temporal weapon, or we will destroy it along with your entire planet. Sarah tried to protest, but alien security forces were already escorting her team toward the exit. As they walked through the corridors, she could hear alarms beginning to sound throughout the ship. Ambassador, Commander Morrison whispered as they were forced back toward their ship. What do we do now? Sarah looked back at the conference room where the alien leaders were undoubtedly planning humanity's destruction. She had failed to convince them, and now both species were heading toward a conflict that could destroy everything. We pray that Dr. Chen can complete his work before they destroy us all, she replied quietly, as the Hermes undocked from the alien flagship. Sarah watched through the window as the massive armada began moving toward Earth. She had one last chance to warn humanity of what was coming. Get us back to the fleet as fast as possible, she ordered, and send an emergency message to Captain Vasquez. Tell her that diplomacy has failed and the aliens will attack within the hour. The small courier ship raced away from the alien armada, carrying the news that would force humanity to choose between defending themselves and saving the universe. Behind them, 10,000 alien warships prepared for what they believed would be a battle to save galactic civilization from human aggression. None of them realized that they were about to become part of the very solution they were trying to prevent. The Earth Defense Fleet hung in space like scattered stars against the darkness. 200 ships of various sizes formed a defensive line around the massive Prometheus, their hulls gleaming under the light of the distant sun. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of humanity's only Titan-class vessel, watching as the largest armada in galactic history approached their position. Captain, reported her tactical officer, the alien fleet has moved into attack formation. We count 10,147 vessels across 12 different species. They are maintaining position at maximum weapons range. Elena nodded grimly. The Hermes had returned 30 minutes ago with Ambassador Kim's report that diplomacy had failed completely. The aliens were convinced that humanity was preparing to attack them with some kind of temporal weapon, and nothing Sarah had said could change their minds. Any word from Dr. Chen? Elena asked. He says the modifications are complete, replied Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. But he needs at least another hour to bring the field generators online safely. Elena looked at the tactical display showing the overwhelming alien force. Every ship in the Council Armada was larger and more advanced than anything in the human fleet. Even working together, Earth's defenders could not hope to defeat such overwhelming numbers. Captain, her communications officer called out, we are receiving a transmission from the alien flagship. Put it through, Elena ordered. The main screen showed Admiral Kethvar standing on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. His blue skin had darkened with anger, and his four arms gestured aggressively as he spoke. Human vessel Prometheus, you have ignored our ultimatum and continued charging your temporal weapon. You leave us no choice but to defend ourselves and the galaxy from your aggression. Elena stepped forward, trying one last time to make the aliens understand. Admiral Kethvar, you are making a terrible mistake. We are not your enemy. The device you think is a weapon is actually meant to save all of us. Your lies will not work, Kethvar replied coldly. Our sensors show massive temporal distortions, building around your ship. In exactly 30 minutes, we will open fire with the full strength of our combined fleet. You have that long to surrender. The transmission ended, leaving Elena staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, each person understanding that they were about to face impossible odds. "Captain," Sarah Chen said quietly, "my father wants to speak with you privately." Elena made her way through the corridors of the Prometheus to the main laboratory where Dr. Chen was making final adjustments to his equipment. The quantum field generators hummed with barely contained energy, creating a sound like distant thunder that could be felt through the ship's hull. "Elena," Dr. Chen said without looking up from his controls, "I have been thinking about our situation. The aliens are going to attack with everything they have, and our shields cannot withstand that kind of firepower for more than a few minutes." "How long do you need to complete the temporal repair?" Elena asked. "At least 40 minutes for a full repair. Maybe 20 for a partial fix that would stabilize things temporarily." Elena shook her head. "We will be destroyed long before then." Dr. Chen finally turned to face her, his expression showing a mixture of desperation and determination. "Unless we use their attack as part of the solution." He brought up a series of calculations on his computer screens, showing complex energy flow diagrams and temporal field equations. "The quantum field generators need enormous amounts of power to operate on a galactic scale," he explained. "I have been channeling energy from 3 different star systems, but it is still not enough for a complete repair." Elena studied the diagrams, beginning to understand what he was suggesting. "You want to use the aliens' weapons as an additional power source?" "Exactly. 10,000 ships firing simultaneously would generate more energy than a dozen star systems. If we can channel that power directly into the field generators, we could complete the repair in minutes instead of hours," Elena finished. "But what are the risks?" Dr. Chen's expression grew grave. "If we miscalculate even slightly, the Prometheus will be vaporized instantly. If we channel too much energy too quickly, we could create a temporal explosion that would make our current crisis look minor." Elena thought about their options. They could try to fight the alien fleet conventionally, but that would only delay the inevitable. They could attempt to flee, but the aliens would pursue them and prevent completion of the repair. Or they could take an enormous gamble that might save the universe or destroy it. "What would you need me to do?" she asked. "When the aliens open, fire. I need you to drop all shields and let their weapons hit us directly," Dr. Chen replied. "The energy will be channeled through the ship's hull into the quantum field generators. But the timing has to be perfect." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "You are asking me to make our ship completely defenseless against the largest military force in galactic history. I am asking you to trust me," Dr. Chen said quietly, "and to trust that the universe is worth saving." Elena looked around the laboratory at the incredible technology that represented humanity's greatest achievement. In a few minutes, she would have to decide whether to risk everything on a plan that sounded like madness. "How will we know if it is working?" she asked. "The temporal field will either stabilize space-time throughout the galaxy, or it will create a cascade failure that destroys everything within 1,000 light years." Dr. Chen replied honestly. "We will know which one within seconds of the energy transfer beginning." Elena made her decision. "I will give you the chance, Dr. Chen. But if this goes wrong, we will all be dead anyway," he replied, "along with everyone else in the universe within 50 years. Elena returned to the bridge to prepare for the most desperate gamble in human history. Around her, the crew worked at their stations, unaware that their captain was about to order them to drop their defenses in the face of overwhelming enemy fire. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "the alien fleet is moving into final attack position. All ships are charging. Weapons!" Elena looked at the display showing thousands of energy signatures building throughout the alien armada. Each ship was preparing to fire with maximum power, intent on destroying the Prometheus before its supposed temporal weapon could be activated. "All ships in the defense fleet," Elena announced over the communications system. "You are ordered to withdraw to minimum safe distance immediately." "Captain," her first officer asked in confusion, "what about defending the Prometheus?" "The Prometheus will handle its own defense," Elena replied, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. As the human ships pulled back, leaving the massive Titan-class vessel alone in space, Elena opened a ship-wide communication channel. "All hands, this is the captain. In approximately 10 minutes, we are going to attempt something that has never been tried before. Dr. Chen believes he can use the aliens' attack against us to power our temporal field generators and complete the space-time repair." She paused, letting her crew absorb this information. "I will not lie to you about the risks. We may all die in the next few minutes, but if we succeed, we will save not just humanity, but every living being in the universe." The ship fell silent except for the humming of the quantum field generators. Elena could feel the weight of history pressing down on her as she prepared to give the most important order any human had ever spoken. Dr. Chen, she said over the intercom. Are you ready? As ready as we can be, came the reply. Field generators are online and standing by for energy input. Elena watched the countdown. Timer on her tactical display. 3 minutes until the alien attack began. She thought about her family back on Earth, about the billions of people depending on her decision, about the trillions of beings throughout the galaxy who had no idea their existence hung in the balance. Captain, her communications officer, reported, the aliens are hailing us one final time. On screen, Elena ordered. Admiral Kethvar appeared again, his expression showing no mercy. Human ship, this is your final warning. Surrender your temporal weapon or face the consequences. Elena took a deep breath and gave her response. Admiral, I hope someday you will understand that we were trying to save you, not destroy you. The transmission ended. Elena watched as energy readings throughout the alien fleet reached maximum levels. Every weapon on 10,000 ships was aimed directly at the Prometheus. All stations, prepare for impact, Elena announced. Dr. Chen, initiate emergency protocols. The quantum field generators throughout the ship began spinning up to maximum power, creating a sound like reality itself was being stretched. Elena could feel the temporal distortions building around them as space-time prepared to be either healed or destroyed. 30 seconds to alien weapons fire, her tactical officer reported. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew, seeing courage and determination on every face. These people had volunteered to risk everything for a chance to save the universe. 10 seconds, came the report. Elena gripped the arms of her command chair and spoke the words that would either save everything or destroy it all. All shields down. Let them hit us with everything they have. The bridge went dark, except for emergency lighting, as the ship's defensive systems shut down completely. Through the viewing windows, Elena could see thousands of energy beams racing toward them through space. In the laboratory, Dr. Chen watched his instruments as unimaginable amounts of destructive energy approached his ship. Everything depended on his calculations being correct and his timing being perfect. The fate of the universe was about to be decided in the next few seconds. The energy beams from 10,000 alien warships struck the Prometheus like the combined fury of dying stars, plasma bolts that could vaporize mountains, particle beams that could cut through planetary cores, and exotic weapons that bent the laws of physics themselves all converged on the massive human vessel. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching his sensors confirm what should have been the complete destruction of the human ship. The energy readings were off the scale, showing more destructive power concentrated in one place than had ever been recorded in galactic history. But then something impossible happened. The energy beams stopped moving, not deflected, not absorbed, but frozen in space like crystalline sculptures. Millions of deadly plasma bolts hung motionless in the void, their brilliant colors creating a vast web of light around the Prometheus. Particle beams stretched across kilometers of space, no longer moving toward their target, but suspended in time itself. What is happening? Kethvar demanded, staring at his instruments in disbelief. His science officer, a young hegemony engineer named Telvar, worked frantically at his console. Admiral, all our weapons fire has stopped approximately 1,000 kilometers from the human ship. Energy readings show the beams are still active, but they are not advancing. Throughout the alien fleet, similar scenes of confusion played out on thousands of bridges. The crystalline Vextai watched in amazement as their harmonic weapons created frozen waves of sound in space. The energy beings of the Luminari found their pure energy attacks locked in temporal stasis, unable to complete their deadly journey. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Elena Vasquez experienced something beyond anything she had imagined. Time around the ship seemed to flow differently, with everything outside moving in slow motion, while the ship itself operated normally. Dr. Chen, she called over the intercom, what is happening out there? Deep in the laboratory, Dr. Chen stared at his instruments with a mixture of awe and terror. The quantum field generators were operating far beyond their designed parameters, channeling the energy from the alien attack through dimensional pathways that existed outside normal space-time. It is working, he whispered, barely believing his own words. The temporal field is stabilizing. We exist in a bubble of accelerated time while everything outside is locked in stasis. The energy from 10,000 alien weapons poured into the quantum field generators, providing exactly the power needed to complete the galactic repair. Dr. Chen watched as his displays showed space-time distortions throughout the galaxy beginning to heal themselves. The tears in reality that had been growing for centuries started to close. The web of instability that threatened universal collapse began to strengthen and stabilize. For the first time in 3 years, Dr. Chen allowed himself to hope that they might actually succeed. "How long do we have?" Elena asked. "The temporal field will hold for approximately 12 minutes in our accelerated time frame," Dr. Chen replied. "That should be enough to complete the repair and record a message for the alien fleet." Elena realized they had been given an incredible opportunity. While the aliens were frozen in time, humanity could explain what had really happened and provide proof of their true intentions. "All hands," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We have 12 minutes to document everything and prepare a message that will convince the aliens we were telling the truth." Throughout the ship, the crew worked frantically to record data, compile evidence, and create a comprehensive explanation of the temporal crisis and its solution. They had access to real-time readings showing the space-time repairs taking place throughout the galaxy, providing undeniable proof of what the Prometheus had actually accomplished. Dr. Chen coordinated the scientific documentation while his daughter, Sarah, worked on the bridge to create a diplomatic presentation that would make sense to the alien leaders. They included detailed sensor readings, mathematical proofs, and visual demonstrations of the healing process. "Dr. Chen," Elena called out as she reviewed the presentation, "we need to include something that will prove we could have used this technology as a weapon if we had wanted to." Dr. Chen understood immediately. "Show them the temporal field itself. We currently have 10,000 alien ships locked in time, unable to move or respond. If we were truly aggressive, we could destroy them all right now." This was indeed the ultimate proof of human intentions. The aliens had attacked with everything they had, and humanity had responded by freezing their weapons rather than turning them back on their creators. No aggressive species would have shown such restraint when given the power to destroy their enemies. As the minutes passed, Dr. Chen's instruments showed the space-time repairs nearing completion. The quantum field generators had successfully woven the torn fabric of reality back together across an area spanning thousands of light years. The immediate crisis was over. 5 minutes remaining, Dr. Chen reported. The repair is 98% complete. Space-time stability throughout this region is now stronger than it has been in centuries. Elena made final adjustments to their message while watching the frozen alien fleet through the viewing windows. It was an incredible sight. Thousands of massive warships suspended in time, their weapons fire creating a brilliant display of colors in the darkness of space. "Dr. Chen, when the temporal field collapses, what will happen to the alien weapons?" "The energy will dissipate harmlessly," he replied. "The beams have been channeled through our generators and converted into temporal field energy. When time resumes normal flow, there will be nothing left to hit us." As the final minutes counted down, Elena reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had faced the greatest crisis in universal history and found a solution that saved everyone, including those who had tried to destroy them. It was perhaps the most fundamentally human response possible, to risk everything to help others, even when those others saw them as enemies. 2 minutes remaining, Dr. Chen announced. "All repairs are complete. Space-time is now stable throughout the galaxy." Elena activated the ship's communication system to record her final message. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Prometheus. If you are receiving this message, it means our temporal field has collapsed and normal time has resumed." She looked directly into the camera, knowing that alien leaders throughout the fleet would soon be watching her words. "What you experienced was not an attack, but a demonstration of what humanity could have done if we truly meant you harm. We held 10,000 of your ships in temporal stasis, and we chose to release you unharmed." The recording continued with Dr. Chen explaining the technical details of what had been accomplished, providing sensor data that showed the healed space-time throughout the galaxy. He demonstrated how the alien weapons fire had been converted into repair energy rather than being reflected back at their sources. 30 seconds, Dr. Chen called out. Elena felt the ship beginning to vibrate as the quantum field generators prepared to shut down. The temporal field that had protected them and enabled the repairs was about to collapse, returning them to normal space-time. "All hands, prepare for temporal field collapse," Elena announced. The humming of the generators grew louder, then suddenly stopped. The feeling of accelerated time disappeared, and Elena could sense that the universe around them had returned to normal flow. Through the viewing windows, she watched as the frozen energy beams simply faded away, their destructive power completely dissipated. The alien fleet found themselves exactly where they had been before firing, but their weapons were no longer charged and their targets were no longer threatened. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we are receiving hundreds of transmissions from the alien fleet. They want to know what happened." Elena smiled for the first time in hours. Put Admiral Kethvar through first. The main screen showed the alien admiral standing on his bridge, his expression a mixture of confusion and awe. His blue skin had paled considerably, and his 4 arms gestured uncertainly. "Human vessel," he said slowly. "Our sensors show that space-time throughout this region has been repaired. The temporal distortions that my science officers detected are gone." "That is correct, Admiral," Elena replied. "The Prometheus has completed its mission. The universal crisis has been resolved." Kethvar looked at his instruments, clearly struggling to understand what had happened. "Our weapons, they should have destroyed your ship. Instead, they simply disappeared. We channeled their energy into our repair systems," Elena explained. "Your attack provided exactly the power we needed to complete the process. In a way, you helped us save the universe." Over the next several hours, scientists from 12 different species studied the data that humanity provided. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Space-time was indeed more stable than it had been in centuries. The crisis that had threatened universal destruction was over. Hive Queen Zalthara was among the first to publicly acknowledge the truth. Her species' sensitivity to temporal distortions allowed them to confirm that the repairs were real and complete. "The humans were telling the truth," she announced to the assembled fleet. "They have healed damage that we did not even know existed. The universe is safer now because of their actions." One by one, the other species reached the same conclusion. The scientific evidence was too strong to ignore, and the fact that humanity had shown such restraint when they possessed ultimate power proved their peaceful intentions. Dr. Chen emerged from his laboratory exhausted but triumphant. The project that had consumed 3 years of his life was complete, and the universe would continue to exist for billions of years to come. "Captain," he said to Elena, "I have been thinking about our next step. Now that the other species know about the space-time crisis, we should work together to develop better FTL technology that does not cause cumulative damage." Elena nodded. "It sounds like humanity is about to become very popular in the galactic community." Indeed, over the following days, representatives from all 12 species requested meetings to discuss technological cooperation and mutual defense agreements. The species that had come to destroy humanity now wanted to learn from them and work with them. Ambassador Sarah Kim, who had survived the diplomatic disaster that nearly led to war, found herself coordinating the largest peaceful first contact event in galactic history. The fear and suspicion that had driven the alien alliance was replaced by gratitude and respect. Admiral Kethvar personally apologized to Captain Vasquez, admitting that his preconceptions about human aggression had nearly prevented the salvation of the universe. The warrior who had led the largest armada in history became one of humanity's strongest advocates for peaceful cooperation. The Prometheus itself became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. The ship that aliens had feared, as the ultimate weapon, was revealed to be the ultimate tool of preservation. Humanity's willingness to risk everything to save everyone, including their enemies, established them as natural leaders in the galactic community. And in the depths of space, where reality itself had been torn and was now healed, the fabric of the universe continued its eternal dance, stable and secure for countless generations to come. Time flowed normally once again, carrying the stories of all species toward a future that would exist because one species had dared to look beyond their own survival and work to save everything that existed. The moment when time stood still had become the moment when the universe was reborn.